The third time my husband helped that intern nurse with her forms, I bit into a sour orange. The next moment, I calmly stood up, closed the door, and never came back. A friend asked me, Daniel finally let go of his first love to marry me. Why was I suddenly so heartless? I said it was because that orange was too sour. They laughed at me. What kind of reason is that? I laughed too. When I didn't want to argue with Daniel, that sour orange could serve as a reason. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. When I entered the ward, Daniel was holding a computer with one hand and gripping a mouse with the other. His leg was injured, wrapped in a cast, but the person remained serious, as if handling some important matter. It's actually quite simple. Just look here like this. The girl held the mouse pad with both hands, her gaze fixed on the computer screen as she nodded repeatedly. It should be done now. The girl let out an exaggerated wow, turning her head so abruptly that her nose almost touched my husband's. A young, admiring gaze. Daniel seemed to freeze for a moment, unmoving. In the end, the girl blushed and took half a step back, lowering her head to murmur, "Thank you." As she passed by me, she looked up and explained awkwardly, "I'm asking Daniel to help me make a spreadsheet." When I saw her eyes clearly, my heart skipped a beat, and I immediately understood why Daniel had been stunned. So similar. Daniel noticed me out of the corner of his eye and rubbed his temples. Not busy with work. His face was full of exhaustion, with dark circles under his eyes, clearly in poor condition. Snapping out of my thoughts, I picked up an orange from the plate before answering him. Mom asked me to come. We grew up together. And now, married for 3 years. Both families have repeatedly urged us to have a child. I don't want one, and neither does he. So we reached an agreement to perfunctorily deal with each other's parents. He fell silent and shifted his plaster cast leg. Bending down, he set up the folding table and began working. In less than 10 minutes, a sudden knock came at the door. The girl peeked out with half her face. She hesitated, glancing at me, then at Daniel. Daniel spoke briskly. "Speak." She trotted into the room, hugging her laptop as she moved next to Daniel. "I still have one more question." Without pausing my hands, I deftly peeled an orange. The sweet and sour scent filled the entire hospital room. I watched Daniel close the laptop he had just taken out and take her computer instead. I remember a long time ago, I pestered Daniel to explain a project to me. What did he say at the time? "If you don't understand it, that's all the more reason to learn it yourself." I simply put the orange aside and propped my chin in my hand to watch her. Not only was her profile similar, but her demeanor was too. Especially the way he looks at people with curved eyes. "Daniel, you're amazing." Daniel also smiled a little, perhaps because it had been a long time since he dealt with such a simple problem. He spoke a bit more. "Learn more. Don't come to me as soon as you don't know something." The girl stuck out her tongue and then said, "My aunt told me to come find you." Though I was prepared, hearing this still felt like a chunk had been carved out of my chest, leaving it hollow and aching. I picked up the orange, carefully peeling away the white fibers from its surface, and without looking up, asked, "Sandra." Although it was phrased as a question, I already had the answer in my heart. Sure enough, the girl's surprised voice rang out, "You know my aunt?" "I don't know her. Haven't even met her face to face." By the time I heard this name, she had already transferred schools and left. Daniel and I grew up together as childhood sweethearts. We attended universities in the North and South respectively. On the day he left, I proudly and domineeringly confessed to him, "Daniel, I like you. You're not allowed to look at other girls." He smiled and said he saw me as a younger sister, then started a relationship soon after starting his freshman year. But that relationship came and went quickly. During the summer vacation of our sophomore year, just as I was about to meet that girl, they had already broken up. She had gone abroad to study. At that time, I casually said to those around me, "She only accompanied Daniel for 2 years, but I grew up with him and will stay by his side for a lifetime." A decade or so is insignificant compared to a lifetime. Back then, I clumsily measured with time, thinking that given enough years, I would inevitably leave a mark in his heart. But I forgot. What's the use of just counting time? It all depends on Daniel. If Daniel is willing, then I'll be the wife who accompanies him for a lifetime. Daniel wouldn't agree. Then I'd just be his boring meal companion for decades. Daniel called my name in a low, warning tone. "Valerie Robinson." He addressed me by my full name. When he was drunk. How did he call Sandra? He called her Sandra. Wife. The girl sensed the awkward atmosphere and softly said, "Sorry." Before leaving the room, I separated an entire orange and, as if forcing myself to find something to do, began picking off the white pith from each segment. Daniel, after saying that, he picked up his laptop and started working again. He casually remarked, "It's been so many years, can we just drop it? Is it me who brings it up? Is it me who wants to bring it up? Even I can't understand why. In just 2 short years, Sandra, this name could overshadow me and Daniel for so many years. The first time was during the first year Daniel and I were together. He confessed to me in a fluster, Sandra is back. The reason for their breakup was unknown to others. But I knew. Sandra cheated. What a disgusting reason. But it was this very disgusting reason that trapped Daniel in place. At the time, I comforted him. If you want to see her, go. You should at least make things clear. Daniel knocked my head and called me silly, saying who in their right mind would push their own boyfriend away. He didn't go. A month later, he proposed to me. I thought he had truly moved on. But this year, in our 3rd year of marriage, he injured a leg for Sandra. The truth is right before my eyes. How can I keep deceiving myself? This is the hospital our 2 families often visit. Usually, I come here for any major or minor illnesses. It was only during this time Daniel was hospitalized that I realized Daniel was so familiar with this nurse. It was also during this time that I learned she calls Sandra Auntie. I handed the orange in my hand to Daniel. He waved it off, and I casually placed it in the fruit bowl nearby. I looked up at him. He still looked exactly as I remembered. It felt like in the next second, he would grab my backpack and say, "Let's go home." I simply spoke up, with a hint of resignation. "I don't like you helping her with the spreadsheets." Daniel was taken aback. In 3 years of marriage, I had rarely made such unreasonable demands as I used to. Perhaps it's because I've been with him for so long that I now think more about reasons. Everything must have a cause. Even I can't remember the last time I acted spoiled without reason. Daniel turned his head to glance at me and, after a long pause, responded, But as luck would have it, just after he agreed, there was another knock at the door. This time the girl pushed the door open directly. "Daniel, help me out. I forgot again." Daniel glanced at me expressionlessly and refused the girl. "It's simple. You can look it up online." But the girl moved closer, moved his laptop away, and placed hers on the table. It reminded me again, back when we had just gotten married, on a day off. I suddenly wanted to look something up. Before my hand could even touch his laptop, he reached out to stop me. "I don't like others touching my laptop," the girl coquettishly said. "My sister-in-law said you'd help me. Just this once." Daniel looked at her helplessly, then glanced at me. Seeing that I remained silent, he finally took the computer. The 3rd time, the man's steady voice echoed in the ward again, and suddenly I found it somewhat dull. I wasn't there for those 2 years, Daniel, so I never knew just how much he loved Sandra. Looking back now, it must have been deeply enough to love the crow for the sake of its nest, patiently explaining simple spreadsheets to her niece. In my youth, I still thought of competing with Sandra, to see who Daniel treated better. Now it's clear. No contest was needed. Just Sandra's niece alone was enough to bring me to utter defeat. The voice continued, and I caught sight of a perfectly peeled orange. At least I'd peeled it myself. Daniel wouldn't eat it, but someone ought to at least give it a try. But it seemed luck wasn't on my side. Even the orange was sour. I felt a bit aggrieved. Why was the orange sour? What right did it have to be sour? Then, I found it somewhat boring to dwell on such questions. Even my nearly decade-long persistence began to feel tedious along with it. I stood up. Daniel looked up from behind the computer screen and asked me, "Where are you going?" The sour taste in my mouth lingered. I looked at him, noticing a hint of nervousness in his expression. Daniel thought I would be angry because he broke his promise. But I replied, "The oranges are too sour." He breathed a sigh of relief, as if he had narrowly escaped. "There are sweet ones downstairs. Buy them quickly and come back soon. It's time to eat." He lowered his head again to look at the computer, gently answering questions that could easily be found on Baidu. I walked out of the ward without looking back. Standing downstairs at the hospital, I stared at the bustling crowd and froze for a moment. Where should I go? When you don't know where to go, just go home. My parents are retired and traveling all over the country, leaving the house empty, but I still want to go home. I bought the fastest available ticket, heading straight from the hospital to the high-speed rail station, taking nothing with me, caring about nothing, just desperately wanting to leave this place. Before setting off, Daniel suddenly called. I answered. His tone was as usual. When are you coming back? We might have a guest staying at home. I heard the girl's energetic voice on the other end of the phone. Daniel, is it okay if my aunt stays at your place? I saw sister-in-law. Before I could hear the rest of the conversation, he hastily hung up the phone. He sent a message. I'll explain when you get back. The taste of that sour orange I had at the hospital suddenly flooded my mouth again. I didn't respond to his words, somewhat abruptly sending him a message instead. Let's get a divorce. He thought I was joking and replied quickly. I'm dealing with something urgent right now. Don't mess around. How can you casually bring up divorce? I told you I'd explain the reason when you got back. But what reason could there possibly be? Having a woman move into your home, aside from ambiguity and infidelity. I can't think of a third reason. The message was crystal clear. The next second, I blocked him without hesitation. After getting in the car, the city gradually faded behind me, and it belatedly occurred to me that the last time I threw caution to the wind like this was also because of Daniel. Back then, he had just started his business and was going through the toughest times, renting an entire floor as an office. No one believed in him. I came to him without hesitation, bringing all the 80,000 yuan I had saved. I still remember that year when I squatted in front of that dilapidated building, sending him a message. Daniel, I've come to find you. He came downstairs with a stubbled face, and the moment I placed the bank card in his hand, his tears fell in large drops, more heart-stirring than anything else. But the passion I felt back then has gradually cooled over time. I came because of him, and I left because of him too, completing a full circle in a way. As soon as I got home and lay on the bed, I came across Sandra's social media post. Won the case. Finally divorced. And have a place to live. A new life begins. The woman was beaming in the photo she posted with her lawyer, and at the very edge sat Daniel in a wheelchair. This was the urgent matter Daniel had mentioned. Sandra had the misfortune of marrying the wrong person. Her husband was abusive, and she had been seeking divorce advice since last year. Daniel was silent during that time, consulting one divorce lawyer after another. In the end, I learned about this from his friend. His friend gave me Sandra's contact information. At the time, I tried to persuade Daniel. Daniel who said to me, "She's a girl. How could I just stand by and watch her get beaten?" So I referred the most famous lawyer to her. She replied to me with, "Thank you," but never contacted that lawyer. I thought she had a better option. Now, seeing the lawyer's face in the photo, I understand everything. He is Daniel's university professor. Daniel has told me more than once how amazing he is. In comparison, the person I found really doesn't measure up. Indeed, she never needed my help from the start. My husband would naturally go out of his way to remove obstacles for her. I gave her a like. The next second, she sent me a message. "Since we'll be living together from now on, I'll be troubling you. Sister-in-law." I saved this message along with the screenshot of the social media post, then turned off my phone and went to sleep. I do want a divorce, but the blame shouldn't all fall on me. Sandra acted quickly and moved into our house the very next day. She replaced my succulents on the balcony with jasmine, swapped my handmade vase in the living room for a transparent glass one. And what disgusted me the most was that she dug out my old clothes and threw them all away. She had to post about every single thing she did. Daniel silently condoned it. When things escalated to this point, Daniel's friend called to remind me, "Just swallow your pride and talk it out with Daniel. Wouldn't that solve everything? Sandra wouldn't mess with your things either. Why should I bow my head? What have I done wrong?" When I was a child, I accidentally knocked over the fish soup my mother had spent 2 hours making. I could rely on her love for me and say, "The bowl burned my hand. It's the bowl's fault." Now another woman has moved into my home, and I still have to lower my head and apologize. I never apologized for the things I actually did wrong. Now that I'm not at fault, why should I apologize? What kind of logic is this? I replied to that friend, "Go ahead and throw it away. Sandra can throw whatever she wants. Anyway, I'm never going back. Tell me, why on earth did you do it? Daniel finally gave up his first love to marry you. What were you after?" I joked. That day I ate a sour orange. What's the reason for this? Daniel must have been with him. Probably my joke triggered him. His impatient voice suddenly came through the receiver. "Fine. Go ahead and make a scene. I've changed the house lock too. If you come back, ask Sandra for the key. In the past, I would have given Daniel a way out in such situations, but now I remain silent. Daniel sensed the tension and suddenly softened his tone. Valerie, apologize to me, and I'll forgive you. You left me alone in the hospital. But why does he think I'm the one in the wrong? I hung up and then blocked them all. A bunch of lunatics. Sandra continued to document her life incessantly. This time, she was lying on the bed wrapped in a towel, eyes dazed, clutching a key pressed against the cheek. Caption: finally have a home. I silently watched, taking screenshots to archive everything she posted, calculating the delivery's arrival time. I removed Daniel from the blacklist. I dialed first, and he answered. I heard a woman's voice come through the receiver. Daniel, don't be so harsh. If you can't explain it clearly, I'll do it. Daniel lowered his voice and called my name. Valerie. Daniel panicked when he found out I had blocked him, but recalling the past, I had blocked him quite a few times when I was in a bad mood. Then he completely relaxed. But during yesterday's phone call, I calmly said I wouldn't be coming back. My tone steady, completely different from the tantrums I used to throw long ago. He had panicked, but today I called again. Daniel thought I would throw a fit like before and eventually come home obediently. But the next second, my voice came through the phone. The package will arrive today. Just sign for it. What? Divorce papers. There was sudden silence on his end. After a long pause, he asked again. What? I laughed softly. If there are no issues with the agreement, then sign it. Daniel seemed lost in thought, perhaps realizing I wasn't joking, as his tone uncharacteristically tensed up. Valerie, I won't get divorced. But why bother? The person he loves is right by his side, being able to accept her infidelity and return. It must be true love. Why won't he let me go? Think it over again. A divorce lawsuit would be troublesome for both of us. The next day when I opened the door, Daniel was standing right there. His leg hadn't fully healed yet. His body carried the scent of hospital disinfectant, and his face was pale. I wasn't the least bit surprised he could find me. After all, we lived in the same neighborhood. Just asking any neighbor would reveal I'd already returned. He pinched the bridge of his nose and looked at me, speaking slowly. Sandra has already moved out. He acted as if he had suffered so much, resentfully giving me a way to back down. But he could have let her move out from the very beginning. Why did he have to wait until I got angry, even heartbroken, before finally giving me the answer I wanted? When it comes to Sandra, I'm always the one being abandoned. Anything related to Sandra is always more important than me. That sour orange was so tart it made me cry. Even now when I think about it, I can still recall that sensation. I never want to taste that sour orange again. I looked at Daniel and said, I've loved you for so many years. Just let me go. He might have been hearing this tone from me for the first time and was momentarily stunned. The next second, he leaned down and gently held me in his arms, softening his voice as he whispered, Valerie, let's be good to each other. Didn't you always want a baby? He brought up old memories, but the hickey on the side of his neck was unmistakably clear to me. I felt disgusted, but I had no concrete evidence. With just a hickey, I can do nothing. He refused to sign the divorce agreement. The lawyer tactfully told me that without substantial evidence, the divorce lawsuit would drag on indefinitely. Substantial evidence, recordings, photos, or an apology letter written by the husband in regret would suffice. But back when we got married, a marriage certificate was all it took. Why is divorce so much harder? As long as he doesn't agree, the divorce can be delayed again and again. For them, marriage is a lifelong beneficial contract. But for women, it's a disaster that's hard to escape once they step into it. I looked at the hickey and asked him, did it feel good? He looked down at me in confusion. What? How was it sleeping with Sandra? For a moment, he seemed flustered before asking, where did you hear that rumor? But that hickey, I wasn't entirely sure he'd actually cheated. I just suddenly remembered Sandra clutching that key, wearing a bathrobe, and casually made a guess. But his reaction wasn't normal. A normal person falsely accused of cheating would fly into a rage. But his first reaction was to ask where I heard it. I didn't speak, just looked at him calmly. A bead of sweat formed on the tip of his nose. Sandra told you. Just a second ago. He was affectionately calling Sandra. The next moment, realizing he might be exposed, he immediately addressed her by her full name, deliberately creating distance. I remained silent, and he spoke up. You can't believe what she says. She's nothing but a liar. He completely absolved himself of any blame. As he was about to explain again, I shed a couple of tears, my eyes red as I asked him, "Do you think everyone is a fool? We grew up together. Do you think I can't tell when you're lying?" He saw me crying and, unusually for him, seemed somewhat flustered. I reached out to push him, raising my voice. "Are you still not willing to tell the truth now?" He took a step back, raising his hand in a fluster to wipe away my tears, but ultimately spoke helplessly. "It was an accident. I really drank too much. I don't know how she ended up lying beside me the next day." I wanted exactly his explanation. There's a surveillance camera at my entrance, and the audio was recorded crystal clear. The tears I initially shed to bluff him somehow became uncontrollable after his confession. He still tried to hold my hand. I raised my hand and slapped him hard, then said while looking at him, "Flirting with your first love while keeping me your wife. Steady. Are you enjoying this?" He no longer argued at this point, standing still in place. Seeing that I couldn't stop crying, he murmured, "Valerie, I didn't expect things to come to this." She left with nothing, penniless. Back then, to find a divorce lawyer for Sandra, I exhausted all means to gather everything related to her. She didn't divorce because of domestic violence, but because of infidelity. The reason was exactly the same as when she cheated while being with Daniel. She looked down on them for not having money. After leaving Daniel, she did get together with that rich second generation as she wished. But after marriage, she came into contact with circles that didn't belong to her and realized that the so-called rich second generation in her eyes was just at the bottom of the social ladder, repeating the same old trick, only to end up losing both the person and the money. Such a despicable person. Daniel just loves. I immediately slapped him across the face again. "Trashy man and slutty woman. Aren't you afraid of dirtying my eyes? Get lost. Stay away from me." I originally didn't want to make a spectacle for others, intending to divorce quietly, but now I can't hold back anymore. I posted all the screenshots in the family group chat. Not only that, I also shared the images on all my social media platforms. They should be the ones feeling ashamed about this, not me reflecting on it. My phone kept buzzing with notifications as more and more people reached out to gossip. My response was simple: "You should go ask Daniel and Sandra what they think." My best friend learned about this online and took time off work specifically to come see me. She initially scolded me. "Why didn't you tell me in advance?" Midway through drinking, she leaned close and started berating Daniel. "Daniel is really no good. If it weren't for your childhood friendship, I wouldn't have tried to match you too. If I'd known earlier, I might as well have matched you with Humbert." Not having heard that name in years, it took me a few seconds to pull him from the depths of my memory. Humbert. My college classmate. My best friend was in the same major as him, so she knew all about these things. At least Humbert keeps himself clean. In our circle, you're the only one who has his contact info. Not even me. Back when he was pursuing you, why did I ever stand on Daniel's side? I must have been blind, because I liked Daniel back then, and she learned about Daniel from me, so naturally she took my side. My best friend kept on venting. I smiled at her. "What's the point of bringing up these old stories? We should always look forward." She was drunk, dazedly asking me, "How are you so sure Daniel cheated? I heard your recording." When you suddenly said it, I was shocked. I took her glass away and answered without hesitation. "Just a guess." In the end, she got completely drunk, cursing Daniel over and over again, calling out Humbert's name with regret. I took her home, and by the time I returned, it was nearly evening. From a distance, I saw someone standing at the entrance of my apartment complex. The sunset cast its glow on the tall figure of the man, who keenly noticed my gaze. The next second, I crashed into a pair of pitch-black eyes. "Humbert." He walked quickly toward me and was the first to explain. "I'm here on a business trip. I heard you were back. How about dinner together?" He was dressed in a suit, as if he had just come from some meeting. Although he took good care of me back then, I took a step back to create distance. "I've already eaten." He didn't seem embarrassed either, standing in place before finally speaking after a long pause. "Valerie, we don't have to be this awkward. You can treat me as a friend." I continued to step back, explaining to him, "I don't need more friends. This is the difference between me and Daniel. He can comfortably remain friends with his ex-girlfriend, while I can't even be friends with someone who once pursued me. If we never intended to be together in the first place, why give the other person hope?" He actually laughed. You rejected me just as decisively back then. I didn't even get to finish my confession. Now I've learned to be smarter. I give excuses first. And you still reject me. I didn't speak. And he let out a self-deprecating laugh, nodding at me. Go on up. I'll stand here for a while. Seeing me look at him, he smiled again, not even allowed to stand for a bit. After he said that, I turned to leave but accidentally twisted my ankle. By the time I realized what had happened, he was already crouched on the ground examining my ankle. His finger felt warm, and he quickly concluded, no bone injury, but try to avoid strenuous activity for the next couple of days. At this particular time, I sprained my ankle. Talk about bad timing. I had no choice but to explain awkwardly. I met up with Song Song today, so I wore high heels. I don't usually. The man helped me up, smiling as he interrupted me. Don't worry about me getting the wrong idea. His tone carried a hint of self-mockery, and I completely shut my mouth. The next day, when I went out to get my takeout, I ran into him at the door. He explained with a smile, the air is good here, so I bought a place. Must be nice to be rich. I ran into him again in the elevator while taking out the trash, carrying 2 bags of fresh groceries. Noticing my gaze on the bags, he explained, the food at the nearby market is clean, so I picked up some groceries while I was at it. Seeing me struggling to hop on one foot, he reminded me, if it hurts too much, you should still go to the hospital. He lives right next door to me. If the balcony door isn't closed properly, the smell of cooking oil and food wafts into my apartment. After eating takeout for several meals in a row, he handed me a bag of neatly wrapped wontons when we bumped into each other at the door again. The handmade wontons from this shop are pretty good. Having never stepped into a kitchen before, I had no idea there was a place nearby that sold these. I shamelessly reached out and took them. I went home and transferred the money to him as per the label. I typed out a long string of persuasive words in the chat box, but the next second, he accepted the money without hesitation. Seeing him take the money, I felt even less guilty. With the first time came the second. I liked eating a certain variety of grapes and asked him to bring them. Each time, they were perfect. In just 2 days, I wasn't just eating his grapes. I was having all 3 meals at his place. I don't check my phone often. Whenever the meal was ready, he'd knock on my door. I covered the grocery costs, and he did the cooking. A pretty harmonious collaboration. Bang bang. Humbert handed me the grapes he bought and had just gone back to cook when suddenly there was a knock at the door. I hopped on one foot to the door and opened it without hesitation. Did you forget something? The woman appeared at the door so unexpectedly. She waved at me. I'm Sandra. Finally matching the face to the voice. This was our first meeting, but seeing her only made me feel disgusted. Leaning against the doorframe, I tried to close the door, but she anxiously spoke up. There might be some misunderstanding. I'd like to explain. She pushed the door forcefully, her voice suddenly rising, yet her tone remained sickly sweet. Can you help me post a video saying that Daniel forced me? I was momentarily shocked and instinctively loosened my grip. She braced herself against the door and stood there with an embarrassed smile, a dimple forming on the side of her face. It was truly a very beautiful face, but the words she spoke were utterly shameless. Your post got too much attention, and people kept cursing at me. So I came to find you. I don't know how she had the nerve to say that. Seeing my silence, she looked at me and explained, I really had no money back then and needed a place to stay. Daniel has feelings for me. He scolds me but can't help getting close to me. Of course you should take advantage of whatever you can use. Now that I'm in a relationship, my boyfriend is a bit concerned about this matter. I'd like to clarify it. She's shorter than me, currently pursing her lips in a smile. To an outsider, it might seem like she's my friend, discussing with me where to go in the afternoon. I can't help you with this. It takes 2 to 100,000. The post is already out there. I can't go back on my word. 200,000. The situation is too hot right now. I really can't help. She looked at me with a smile in her eyes. 2 million. Deal. She swiftly transferred the money. Seeing my confusion, she explained to me, I never wanted to stay with that rich second-generation guy anyway. Divorcing makes it easier for me to find the next one. There are plenty of suckers out there. As she spoke, she sent me the video. I glanced at the video. She looked haggard, sitting on the bed, crying pitifully with tears streaming down her face. Her words, a mix of truth and lies, came out between sobs. I have nowhere to go. Daniel let me stay for a couple of days. I thought I'd met a kind soul. So I even messaged his wife, saying I was sorry to trouble her. I never thought he would do such a thing. He was drunk and said he liked me. Her video also included screenshots of our chat, making it seem as if she had really been wronged. Seeing that I had uploaded the video, she finally relaxed and smiled with narrowed eyes. Don't be surprised. I know I'm disgusting and shameless. As if she hadn't had a proper conversation with anyone in a long time, she abruptly added, but it's women like me, the so-called lowly ones, who often live the most carefree lives. How ironic. Seeing her completely lost in her own world, I cautiously suggested, maybe you should find some time to go to the hospital for a checkup. Instead of getting angry at my words, she covered her stomach and burst into laughter. It's just a worthless life anyway. So what if I die? She laughed enough, then took out her phone to check the buzz. Seeing the comments trending in the direction she was happy with, she shyly thanked me. Thank you. I agreed not just for the money, but also for myself. In a divorce lawsuit, the more evidence I gather, the more advantageous it is for me. As for her, she'll crash and burn sooner or later. After she left, I finally saw Humbert's message. Are you done talking? I've been standing at the door, too afraid to come in. The most recent one was from a minute ago. I'm here to deliver food. I had just opened the door to let Humbert in when the knocking sounded again. Some things are just so comical. Daniel suddenly walked in. He must have been running all the way here, still catching his breath. Seeing Humbert sitting nearby, pointed at him and asked, "Who is he?" I didn't answer. Humbert responded coldly from the side, "A friend." Daniel slammed the nearby ornament violently after hearing this. He hadn't seen Humbert, but catching sight of the light gray lunchbox on the table out of the corner of his eye, he questioned me sentence by sentence. What kind of friend comes specifically to bring you food? What kind of friend requires the two of you to be alone together? And what's next? Is the next step lying together in the same bed? Humbert finally couldn't hold back and swung a punch at his face. Daniel was pinned to the floor when I spoke up. Don't assume everyone is as disgusting as you. You cheat, but you can't assume everyone else does. Daniel, his face bruised and swollen, suddenly changed the subject and brought up the real reason he came to see me. What does that video mean? Sandra is the other woman. Earlier, you told me not to misunderstand. Sandra just had nowhere to stay. Now that it affects his reputation and interests, he immediately admits Sandra is the other woman. With his hands restrained by Humbert, he suddenly shouted, "Why aren't you attacking her instead of joining her and scolding me? Why can't I join Sandra in scolding him?" It was Daniel who took the initiative to bring her home. Daniel who knew Sandra wanted a divorce and rushed to find her a lawyer. And Daniel who willingly got involved with Sandra. In the matter of infidelity, both the man and the woman are equally at fault. The woman is despicable, and the man is just as despicable. Daniel, why do you think I would only blame Sandra? Daniel was finally thrown out by Humbert and sat at my doorstep until midnight. Only after seeing him leave in a hurry, Humbert got up to go. He had bruises on his face too. Watching him rub his wrist, before I could speak, he preempted me. Don't feel guilty. I just like hitting people. Are you going to lecture me about that too? Before I could respond, he spoke quickly. I'm leaving tomorrow. I won't bother you anymore. No need to see me off. The next morning, I received his message. You really didn't come to see me off when I told you not to. I was making all that noise next door on purpose. After typing and deleting repeatedly, I finally just sent, "Have a safe trip." It wasn't until the afternoon when my best friend told me that I found out Daniel had gone bankrupt. His company had just gotten on track in the past 2 years and was completely unable to withstand the attacks from netizens. And netizens' comment, "Don't buy their products." His company barely held on for 2 weeks before finally collapsing under the pressure. Last night, Daniel was in a hurry to deal with company matters. The video spread too widely. Daniel's mom called me. As soon as I answered, she immediately launched into a barrage of words. Daniel was indeed wrong. And you have every right to be angry. It was all his lack of boundaries. Being soft-hearted and letting a friend stay at home for a couple of days. You really should file for divorce. Daniel has a leg injury, and you left him alone in the hospital. He really shouldn't be seeing friends. Daniel's family follows the traditional model where the man works outside and the woman manages the home. Usually when I visit their house, Daniel's mom is either cooking or doing laundry. I feel sorry for her and don't know how many times I've spoken up for her. The woman who used to hold my hand and call me, "Darling," now openly attributes Daniel's infidelity to Daniel's lack of boundaries while subtly implying it's my fault. I simply spoke up. If uncle invites another aunt to stay overnight, is that also considered uncle lacking propriety? You don't feel the pain until the needle pricks your own skin. Sure enough, the other side suddenly paused, then asked me with skepticism, "How did you know?" "Once when I went back to deliver something to you, I saw it." She suddenly stopped mentioning Daniel, casually said a few more words, then hung up the phone. Within half an hour, my mom called and asked me, "How did you know about Daniel's dad?" They traveled together, so of course they'd know things faster than I would. She said Daniel's mom went back and asked, and Daniel's dad confessed everything. Now it's turned into an ugly mess. I just took a wild guess. Same as last time when I guessed Daniel and Sandra. It just felt like this might happen. Got lucky. I guessed right again. Not sure whether to feel relieved or find it ridiculous. She couldn't help but laugh, and only after laughing her fill did she speak in a serious tone. "You need to think it through carefully before making a decision. I remember at the very beginning when Daniel and I got together. She didn't approve, even though we grew up together. Back then she didn't mince her words. You two aren't a good match. What's appropriate? How do you define appropriate? In my youth, I threw caution to the wind, convinced that everyone else was a villain standing in the way of my true love. On our wedding day, I asked her, but she didn't answer my question. Instead, she brought up the toast. She said that during the toast, my glass was filled with real alcohol, but in the end, she secretly replaced it with cola. She said, "Daniel has excellent education and looks, but his heart just isn't with you." Only now, after experiencing it myself and stumbling, have I begun to believe her words. Mom then added, "If you want to divorce, just do it. I can afford to support you." That video spread rapidly, and soon someone suddenly came looking for me, asked if I knew Sandra. Before I could answer, they named their price. "Name your figure." 100,000. The intermediary scoffed lightly, as if to say even negotiating terms was done timidly. Unable to name a bold sum, her voice was pleasant, casually multiplying the number I mentioned by 10. She was staying at my ex-husband's place in the end. "The address is XX District, X City. That's all I know. Thank you for your cooperation." Before hanging up, I couldn't resist asking out of curiosity, "What do you need with Sandra?" She politely replied to me, "It's not me looking for you. I'm just an assistant, doing my job for the money." After hanging up, I was still in a daze, feeling like it wasn't real. Daniel's parents came to see me the next day. Daniel's mother stood behind Daniel's father. She must have chosen to forgive. Seeing me, she forced a smile. Daniel, my father, began to persuade me. Daniel was just momentarily confused. "After all, you're the one who'll be spending your life with him. Just forgive him this once." Since he'd watched me grow up, I patiently explained, "It's not about forgiving him once. It's about having to forgive him 1,000 times over whenever this memory resurfaces." He tried to brush it off. "Isn't that just how life goes?" Daniel, his mother, opened her mouth behind him, then closed it again. The usually energetic woman seemed to have all her vitality drained in an instant, withering like a parched plant. I took a step back, my voice turning cold. "I won't forgive, you stubborn child." I maintain politeness and courtesy with him because he usually interacts with my parents, but he oversteps his bounds and even presumes to lecture me, taking advantage of his seniority. "Uncle and auntie, if you have any matters, please contact my parents. As for the issues between Daniel and me, we'll resolve them ourselves." Daniel's father's expression changed, so I added, "And you, uncle, how old are you to still be with another woman? Half the neighborhood has seen it. Don't talk nonsense. You, let's go." Daniel's mother suddenly interrupted him. "Aren't you ashamed enough already? What's there to be ashamed of? I don't steal or rob. I just want to make things clear. What's shameful about that? If you're ashamed, then you leave." Daniel's mother tugged at him again, and he turned around and slapped the woman across the face. She covered her face and looked at me. Normally, I would be the one protecting her, but this time, I didn't move a muscle. She suddenly burst into tears. "Fine, you can hit me at home, but now you're hitting me in public. We've spent most of our lives together. If you're not ashamed, I am. I'm telling you. Not only is Valerie leaving, but I'm leaving too." With that, she fiercely wiped away her tears, grabbed his hair, and returned the slap with full force. The crowd around them was growing larger. Daniel arrived just in time to see Daniel's father being pinned to the ground by everyone. He helped the man up. Daniel's mother suddenly rushed over, pointing at Daniel and scolding. "And you're my son. Have you ever helped me once when your father hit me?" "No. Only Valerie helped me." "You're just like your father. Selfish." Daniel gave me a deep look and asked, "Do you have to ruin my entire family to feel at ease?" Someone recorded a video and uploaded it. Since it involved the protagonist of the previous cheating scandal, many came to watch the drama. Turns out he's just like his dad. Feeling sorry for the ex-wife. Feeling sorry for mom. Don't feel sorry for mom. If she had even half the clarity of your ex-wife, she wouldn't have dragged it out till now. She's absolutely smitten. But their generation's mindset was completely different from ours. Side note, since that scumbag forced the other woman, does that mean he's going to jail? Jail. They're both equally trashy. What decent person moves into their ex's house right after a divorce? What if they're just ordinary friends? More and more people began discussing this matter, with some supporting Daniel's mother, some opposing Daniel's mother, and others supporting Sandra. The arguments continued for several days, until Sandra was exposed by an anonymous post claiming she specifically targets wealthy people for relationships. From high school onwards, it was a seamless transition, basically starting with one person and already looking for the next. Then someone abruptly sent a picture. Sandra was lying in the hospital, and someone asked, "Is that her? So young. Seems like she was in a car accident." I heard the wife showed up, and in her panic, she ran and got hit. The world is ever-changing, and I feel a bit wistful. Then I remembered the assistant politely replying, "Just doing my job for the money." I'm not mocking Sandra, nor will I make Sandra any comments about her hospitalization. Less than 2 days later, someone posted another photo. In the picture, Daniel is holding a bouquet of flowers, wearing a crumpled white shirt, going to see Sandra. The person who posted the picture specifically asked, "True love locked in? Just wondering if the divorce with the original spouse is finalized yet." Daniel is dragging his feet, not providing anything, even in cases of his infidelity. The first trial still didn't result in a divorce. The second trial can only be filed 6 months after the first instance judgment takes effect. Time dragged on. Autumn arrived, and in the blink of an eye, winter set in. Just when it seemed the ordeal was almost over, a long-lost friend suddenly called. "Valerie, Daniel is on the balcony now. Listen to what he has to say. We can't stop them." As if afraid I would refuse. Before I could speak, the phone was already handed to Daniel. He cautiously asked me, "Valerie, do you remember confessing to me in high school?" To be honest, I thought you were joking. But right after college graduation, you came to me with nothing. No one believed in me. Only you did. That winter, we squeezed together in a rented room sharing one takeout meal. Do you remember? I remember. But now I think I was sick in the head back then, pampered at home. Yet I went to squeeze into a rented room with him. If I could go back in time, I'd slap myself without hesitation. I cut off his reminiscing. "What do you want? Let's not bring up these old stories again. Every mention makes me sick." He seemed too drunk to think straight, calling my name over and over. I gazed at the lights outside the window. "Finally," he said, "when I was cheated on, I held a grudge. I wanted to achieve something to show Sandra and make her regret it. I never expected things to escalate to this extent. Valerie, it's my fault. I admit it." After saying this, he sighed. "Drop the lawsuit. I agree to sign the divorce papers." After a long silence, I spoke up. "I don't trust you, Daniel. Why did he come to tell me he agreed to sign just when I was about to make it through? What if I withdraw the lawsuit and he suddenly changes his mind?" I finally saw a glimmer of hope. "I don't want any possibility of not being able to get divorced. I don't trust you, Daniel. I won't drop the lawsuit." His voice choked up on the phone. "Do we really have to go this far?" I reminded him. "It was you, Daniel, who refused to part amicably from the start. You're the one who brought our relationship to this point. We'll have to meet in court. The law in black and white is far more reliable than a man's word." I don't trust him. After the divorce, I rarely had Daniel's news. The whole farce was gradually buried by time. It was my best friend who excitedly told me about Daniel, and only then did I drag him out from my memories. You wouldn't believe it. He looks at least 20 years older. His dad was asking him for money, and if his father hadn't called out to him, I wouldn't have recognized him at all. I don't know what he's doing now. I just took a quick glance from afar. Serves him right. I came here on a business trip with my best friend, and she was so excited that she insisted on dragging me out to explore. Perhaps it's because we shouldn't gossip behind others' backs. Just as we finished talking and were about to leave, we bumped right into that person at the door. For a moment, I was stunned. It was he who spoke first, calling out to me, "Valerie." In less than 10 minutes, a sudden knock came at the door. He left with almost nothing, and these past few years haven't been kind to him. My best friend pulled him away sharply. "Stay away from us." I laughed at the sight of my best friend protecting me like that. "Let's go." I didn't even recognize who he was at first. There's no need to waste energy on irrelevant people. Extra. 4 years later, Humbert was successfully brought home by me, thanks to his excellent cooking skills. This time, Mom didn't oppose as she had before. Instead, she carefully told him some of my little habits. When she got to the happy parts, she pulled out the thick photo album, pointing at one photo after another. She talked about how I'd changed. It was some year's graduation photo. Humbert suddenly spoke up. "That's me." I leaned in closer. It was a high school graduation photo, back when my whole heart was set on Daniel. I touched his hair and said to him, "Don't tell me you liked me back then." He grabbed my hand and said with a smile, "Am I not allowed to like you?" I don't think it's bitter at all. Even after getting married, I still didn't understand why my mother didn't object at all to me and Humbert. I pestered my mom for an answer. Sitting beside me, he proudly boasted, "Who knows? Mom just likes me more." While watching me make a fuss, he casually fed me something. Only after biting into it did I realize it was an orange, and I instinctively wanted to spit it out. "But it's sweet." I looked at him, and he said, "The grapes you like are gone. Make friends with oranges for now." "Then you picked quite well. Every one I randomly eat is sweet." He tapped my head. "Look at the orange peels on the table. The not sweet ones are all in my stomach. You heartless little thing." The end.